All right. I think we are now live. We are 7 seconds in. All right, everybody, welcome to tonight's interview. I'm going to be interviewing Diane Kistler. Diane has taken care of many of my patients, and I can't wait to bite into the information that she's going to share with us tonight, all about restorative yoga and how she helps people with chronic pain. Diane, welcome. I've been looking forward to this, and as I share with you many times we've spoken on the phone, thank you again for helping my patients. I really appreciate it. And tonight I want to jump into, what got you into yoga? How did you get to yoga? What was your journey like?
Yeah. So let me click through my mind here. 23 years ago, I was an avid runner and triathlete, and one of my running buddies and myself went to a class just to try it out. And here we are 23 years later. And as part of my journey, I had to leave a corporate job in the pharmaceutical industry, and decided that training to be a yoga teacher seemed like a natural fit at that point in my life. So I did my training at a yoga studio in Skipback, Moyo Yoga. It's a 200-hour training, and continued with teaching like beginners and more of a gentle style of yoga, more classic. And all of a sudden was thrust into more therapeutic classes. So the cancer community of Philadelphia, working individually with some individuals that had either conditions or illnesses or something going on that we had to spend some time, and decided to pursue, through a little bit of research, a yoga therapy degree, let's call it, or certification. So that's been my last, let's say, 5 to 6 years in pursuing that. A yoga therapy certification is about 800 more hours of study and practicum time, including mentorship and case studies over the 200-hour level. And it was within that training that I met one of my mentors, Neil Pearson, who's a physiotherapist and yoga therapist in Canada, and decided to specialize with chronic pain. My eyes were opened up, must be the science geek or the nerd side of me, to pain neuroscience and how you can marry both the study and principles and philosophies of yoga with modern pain science. And voila, here I am, 15 years later. It's evolved into this this ability to help those with chronic pain.
So let's talk about yoga. Listen, yoga is more than stretching and wearing Lululemon, right? So, and I know there's different kinds of yoga. If we can break down for listeners, how do we know where even to begin? I mean, in my field, with doing manual medicine, I can't afford my patient to just pick up a yoga class. That's why I always say, please start with you and start learning about how to move properly, how to breathe properly, how to feel your own body, because a lot of folks don't have that somaesthetic awareness. They don't feel where they are in time and place. So if you can talk to how do we choose a yoga that's right for us as an individual?
Absolutely. And through my years of experience, even at the 200 level of training, I have been aware that I, as a beginner teacher, didn't come equipped with the languaging, the cueing, the ability to understand someone who's in pain or someone who has even gotten injured during a class. And so it's, through the extensive studies that I've had, that I've been able to evolve into that more, compassionate, understanding therapist. But I hear this also from some of my clients, that they've been advised to go to a yoga class. So they just pick their local studio or their YMCA, and they don't know if they feel safe. And so that's one of the things, is with the different styles of yoga, I cannot say, don't do this. If I know what condition you have, maybe it's contraindicated to be in a hot yoga class, if you have a certain condition. So that may be, let's start you off with maybe a gentle beginner class. Maybe you start off, I think one of the best pieces of advice is to find a qualified yoga teacher or yoga therapist and do one-on-ones with that person. And maybe that's more of a classic or hatha yoga. There's another style, and you referred to it when you introduced me, of restorative yoga. And that's one where you're completely supported by props like blankets and bolsters, etc., where you don't hold your body and you can start to elicit that relaxation response, which can help with healing, which can help with the pain and anxiety and depression. There's different ways that you can support the person. So my best advice for someone just starting off is to go to that place where they're going to take yoga, talk to the instructors, talk to the owner, see if they have a private instruction service there, and go one-on-one for a little bit till you have that comfort level. There's also incredible, teachers out there teaching smaller classes. So maybe it's a smaller class and it's specific to something. I taught for years at Good Shepherd Rehab, yoga for cancer. And as well as the cancer community, as well as at Grandview Hospital. So they were smaller classes. It was very one-on-one. And so I knew the students very well. But yeah, so I think I answered your question there. I could go on, but.
Wait, so let me ask you this. What would be a contradiction? What would be a contraindication not to do yoga? I tell people if they're suffering with, high blood pressure, hypertension, not to get involved with the hot yoga. So maybe you can explain what hot yoga is. Let's talk about the different kind of yogas, the hot yoga, restorative, laughing yoga, hatha yoga.
Sure. One of the things that yoga means to unite. So let me just start with that. Uniting your mind, body, spirit. Okay. It's not a dualistic system. It's not like this is your body, it's over here. This is your mind. These are your emotions and your spirit. It all comes together. So just saying that any type of yoga, I think the goal and the evolution of it is to bring yourself back to your true nature. Okay. To quiet things down a little bit. And some people do it with a hot yoga class where there's a heated room and there's maybe a standard sequence of poses that you do. Okay. Or maybe they do it through that restorative where they're completely supported. Or goodness, maybe they do it through laughter yoga, through, bringing up some of those feel good hormones and the endorphins and the joy. Maybe they do it through an aerial yoga in the hammock, and hatha yoga, which is they call classic.
Hold on, aerial yoga with a hammock.
Never heard that.
You blew me away there. I missed the memo on that one. Can you talk about that?
Oh my goodness, I feel like it is the best thing ever. It's better than sliced bread. At Moyo Yoga, I don't know if they'll be holding them this summer. They have an outdoor. So these are hammocks or slings made out of silk. And they hang from, approximately like 12 to 13 feet off the ground. And you can practice some of the poses or the asana is the name for the poses, in these aerial hammocks. And I find it very therapeutic. In fact, we created a class that was half aerial yoga and half restorative yoga for therapeutic benefit of aligning the spine and releasing tension and working with the nervous system. So yeah, it's a thing, and I hope you can check it out. Or
I plan. I'm gonna Google the heck out of that the minute we're done. I've never heard of that before. Yeah. Is there anybody who should not be doing that one?
Well, yeah. If you have some eye issues, anything where you can't be inverted.
Okay.
The list goes on. So, inversions, if your doctor says, no inversions, that may be. Although you can do some aerial yoga without inverting. You could just lie there and maybe stretch the cervical spine or the lumbar spine. There are other things that you can do. That's one thing about yoga, Michael, is that there are so many variations and adaptions, so that's accessible to everybody. So you ask, who should not do yoga? Well, you could lie on your bed and practice yoga, because as you meant when you began with our time together, you said it's not just the postures, the poses, right. It's breathing, it's meditation, it's lifestyle. It could just be a mantra that you're repeating, or an affirmation. So and more than that, but there's many ways that you can practice yoga.
Well, there's a question from one of our listeners, and
good.
And the question is, can you talk about recommendations on bolsters? So somebody might not even know what a bolster is, so we can talk about using a bolster. And I tell some of my patients, so listen, it's okay to use a blanket, it's okay to use the yoga blocks, it's okay to use the yoga strap. There's some people that want to muscle through yoga, right? They want I can do it. Right. And that's definitely not what it's about, right? So if you can talk a little bit about using bolsters, that would be great.
Okay, great. And I actually have one behind me so I can show one. I'm sitting on the floor because that's like where I'm mostly comfortable. I'm grounded. So yeah, props are not a way out. Props are there so that you can release your body onto it and not hold yourself. If you ever been in a yoga pose, or even walking or running, and you're tensing or clenching somewhere, well, these supports can help you even go deeper into a pose. So I'll show you one. Let me just scoot back. Excuse the rip on it. I use it a lot. So this is a bolster. I'll put it on the diagonal so you can kind of see it. Okay. Something like this, even for meditation, I use. I also use it to support me in some of the restorative poses. So maybe it's a child's pose that I can just lay over. But you can also do that with some firm cushions from your couch or your bed and lay over those over a chair. So it's accessible to chair as well. This could support you in a lunge pose. This could support you in a back bend. You could lay your waist or your pelvis on there. So there's a lot of ways to use something like this, or your blocks, or even blankets, firm blankets. So that's what makes it accessible too.
And if you can just, where do you like to get your bolsters from? Is there one company that you like better, or?
I need to investigate. It's been a while. I've had these, as you can tell, there's a rip in it. So I've had these for a while. So if that person wouldn't mind, I could come back to that and see where, there's a bunch of places. Amazon right now, everyone's delivering from Amazon.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely would say not Walmart, even if they do have a bolster. But another recommendation with them is to get one that you can unzip the cover and wash it.
Okay.
Yeah. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head.
All right, that's no problem. So the other thing I want to talk about, and it's important because you talk about breathing, right? And I talk about breathing in my practice all the time, whether we're dealing with a patient that has a musculoskeletal issue and they're holding themselves, tight all day long in that very fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
We talk about it with our gut patients, our GI patients, our patients that suffer autoimmune and immune conditions. The breathing is just like stop, and they're doing these very short breaths, and there's always like this. So yoga really helps to facilitate that breathing. We're always talking about opening up, right? Because it's hard to breathe when you're crunched down. So can you talk about how you use breath work as part of yoga?
Sure, absolutely. And if you don't mind, I'm going to relate it also with chronic pain as well, because it's just another condition. But so yes, this can be a postural imbalance here, where the diaphragm is not completely descending on your inhale, and it's not coming back on your exhale. I'm sorry. So they may be more shallow breathers and breathing from the chest rather than taking that longer, smoother, softer breath all the way down to the lower parts of their lungs. So they're holding, they're protecting, that protective measure you were just kind of describing. And it doesn't allow for the diaphragm to descend completely. And that can even impact your pelvic floor health as well. If it doesn't come down, it impacts your GI area. You need that movement of that smooth muscle to come all the way down as you breathe in. But sometimes taking a very deep breath can actually promote anxiety or, some type of panic attack. So you want the breath to be longer and as well as smoother, rather than, someone says, take a deep breath, and that's languaging, so if you take a longer, smoother breath, maybe some of your audience is doing this as I'm talking, which would be really nice. That movement begins to happen. And then, working in conjunction with maybe some postural movements to open up the chest a little bit, stretch open the pec muscles, release some of the tightness, because, these muscles are completely stretched out. So strengthening the back and opening up the front will kind of bring everything back into alignment. So breath is important for alignment. Breath is important for movement, mood, everything, cognitive ability. You need to breathe. An awesome book. I don't know if you've heard of it.
James Nestor?
Yes, I was just about to
bring it out so people can see it.
Okay. This is highly recommended. It's maybe backwards. Breath.
Nope, you're good. Yep. Right. Yeah. James Nestor.
James Nestor. I'm so bad with the camera. I'm like, where is it? The New Science of a Lost Art. Excellent book, easy to read. And, he promotes that, you breathe in for 5.5 counts or 5.5 seconds, breathe out for 5.5 counts. And it's a wonderful distribution of both oxygen and carbon dioxide. So,
yep. Yeah. I do a lot of box breathing.
Yeah.
So that helps as well. So we have Betsy says, hey, she lives in Culpsville. The studio is closed. Where can she go? Do you have any ideas?
All right. Well, this is the time. There are some studios, if she's referring to a yoga studio, there are some that are still having some live classes. I'm not associated with a studio right now because of my private practice. So check into, I mentioned Moyo. They may still have some live ones. There's some in North Wales and Lansdale. I don't think in Harleysville. Or they all have virtual classes too. So, you can, and that may even be more accessible now, especially with the winter we're having for at least the next couple weeks.
That's for sure. But we're almost done, so that's good. And where can they find the aerial yoga again? Where is that at? I
thought that Moyo had one in the summer or the warmer months last year. It was outside. So because of COVID. But I don't know who else is offering those. I'm a little out of the yoga studio world right now, but I'll be delving into it a little bit more as I'm a trainer for Pain Care Aware, which is it's a group out of Canada from my mentor. And I'll be going into studios to offer practicum training for yoga teachers on how to be more pain care aware in their classes.
Excellent.
Yeah, just as I mentioned when I began, I wasn't. And it was scary to have someone come up and say, oh, I have this pain here. What do I do? So now I'll be training those teachers to have that languaging, have that cueing, have that awareness, even of pain science, not in depth, but a general knowledge of it, to be able to support their students and so that they can be safe, but also be resilient and strong in their classes.
Yeah, and I think creating that environment where someone feels safe, especially when you're doing yoga, is really important. And you want that person to feel comfortable, for sure.
Absolutely.
If we can touch base now, we're talking about chronic pain, about those who have Parkinson's, those who have MS. I mean, we'll see this in the office. Most of their docs aren't thinking, hey, you should go do yoga, right? So how do you get to are you even trying to get to the docs to get them to send for yoga? I mean, to make them aware of it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, here's your medicine. We'll see you in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it may be. So if you can talk about how we can get to the docs, talk about yoga and chronic pain and those neurodegenerative conditions, and then what do you do different when you see them?
Yeah. So first of all, how to get to the docs. So yoga is very old, over 5,000 years old, but the professional status of a yoga therapy is only about 30 years old. And we have an organization, the International Association of Yoga Therapists, who is a proponent of supporting us and getting us out there to make more reaching out and referrals with our local and national clinics. So what I have been doing is reaching out kind of one-on-one, like you. I reached out to you a couple years ago. The Pain and Spine Institute, which there's a couple offices, I've reached out to them. I have one doctor there who refers me. Physical therapist in Harleysville refers. And when I reach out, I do a little bit of educating of what, first of all, yoga therapy is, what yoga is, how I can support that clinician or that clinic. And then say that let's work maybe as a multidisciplinary team together. Let's collaborate together. Not, referrals are great because you know who you're sending your patients to, and I know who I'm sending my clients to because it goes back and forth.
Right.
But where can we delve a little bit deeper? Because once we have this team organized, it's going to roll out. First of all, you have to have someone who believes in what yoga is, like you do, and like some of the other practitioners that I work with. And then you slowly roll it out, patient by patient. So, and what was the second part of that? I think
it's how do you, when somebody comes in with Parkinson's or MS, what kind of, let's ask you this way, what kind of assessment do you do? How is that different from somebody else coming in the door? And is there more time involved? What is your goal?
Yeah. So it is a longer assessment, and it incorporates their completing several forms. And it's not just about their physical side. It's about, how's their sleep? What's their eating? All these different patterns. How are their relationships? Do they have a spiritual side? Where do they like to go? How are their relationships doing? So that's all part of the intake form. And then during the assessment, I would do a postural assessment. I would do a range of motion assessment, sit down and talk about anything in their intake form that needs a little more explanation. And I will have to say, the whole thing is about developing a therapeutic relationship with that client, because that is an aspect maybe overlooked too much to help that person. And having a good therapeutic relationship is one step toward their healing and recovery. So I would ask specific questions. I would know what their condition is. I may have to do research on that. I am not the expert on that. I don't diagnose. I keep within my scope of practice, but that's information. Okay. Then we go over their goals. What are their intentions? Why do they want to heal? What do they want to do? And a lot of times it comes down to, for example, Michael, is I want to just get down on the floor and play with my grandkids. Like, that is their only goal. So let's implement a plan together to get you to that goal, and step by step. So that's what I would do with almost anybody, but I'm informed by if they have MS, if they have Parkinson's, what they can or cannot do. Can they get on the ground? Do they have to sit in a chair? Maybe it's just an awareness practice because that's all they can do right now.
You have to meet them where they are. That's the whole thing.
Beautiful saying. I love that quote. Yes.
But I want everybody to recognize that, this isn't the norm, what you just shared, right? Because you just shared, I assess this client, this patient, I do take a history, I do learn what's going on, I do see how they move or they don't move, and I do ask them questions about, almost like a checkup from the neck up kind of deal to see at least where they're at. That doesn't happen when you just walk into a yoga class. I'm not saying yoga classes are bad. I'm just saying in this conversation, this setting, this is why I've always enjoyed your work, because I felt like my patient was going to be taken care of, and that's really important. So again, I want everybody just to say, oh, that happens wherever you go, because that doesn't, right? And that doesn't happen. And that assessment is really important. Yeah. So Cheryl asked to talk about the biopsychosocial effects as well as fibromyalgia. I mean, we see a lot of fibromyalgia patients in our office. It's, you get the fibromyalgia, you get the myofascial pain. They have to move. It always comes back to movement and breathing. So if you can talk a little bit about the fibromyalgia, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cheryl mentions the Bio Psychosocial Model. And with yoga, we also add the spiritual side to that. And that is a model that when we're referencing the pain, and especially with the fibromyalgia person that has fibromyalgia, is that we're looking at the whole being, as we approach them. So, maybe they're with the heat and the fascial pain, we get that awareness piece first. So coming into maybe where their discomfort is or where their flare up is for that day, coming into that, breathing into that, noticing if it changes as you breathe. So there's a huge awareness piece that's part of pain care. And then what do you do now that you are aware of these things? Then you need to just kind of maybe change either your behavior or your actions, or if you're in a posture or pose, maybe you need to just shift a little bit and observe that. And you always go back to that awareness piece. And I'm kind of being a little less specific to fibromyalgia because, again, I have to look at the individual because there's so many realms of people with fibromyalgia. But especially with the flare-ups, why is it happening here? Is this persistent? Can I breathe into it? Can I become aware of it? Can I use my discovery of what's going on to go deeper or maybe go to rest? So with fibromyalgia, there needs to be some breaks as well. So when I implement like a treatment plan, and I refer to them as a treatment plan with my clients, taking little breaks throughout the day. Maybe there's times that you do have some movement and take a break, and then another time that you have some movement and take a break. So you want to incorporate those things within your day.
Excellent. You talked a little bit about, being on the floor and floor work. And there's been some studies that talked about if you're able to get up off the floor, the better you can do it, the better you are, the longer you will live. There's some longevity studies on that. So if you can talk about the importance of the ability to get up from the floor. And a lot of people don't get on the floor anymore. They just like sofa, recliner, in front of the, driving, so they don't get on the floor. And getting on the floor and getting up from the floor, I think is helpful all around. Can you talk about doing floor work like that?
Yeah. And last week, I came into a book, I have it over there, about working with pain and, just talking about those pendiculation and things like that. Like, just being able to move naturally on the floor, like you were a newborn, going through the developmental stages. Sure. And we lose that as we become more rigid and more set into our habits as we get a little bit older. So yeah, there are ways to get down to the floor. And I think it's important. Maybe that's something you work toward as your goal with that person. If they say, oh, I have a bad knee, okay, let's work on strengthening and working with the joints there and show you different ways to get down there. Because then you can start to move more in that, like I call it infantile or developmental way, to get back into the groove and lose the rigidity that may be in your joints or in your body. So I think floor work is key for that, as well as many other things. But and safety, right? The person that takes a fall. Now, how can I possibly even just move enough from this place on the floor to grab a phone or, get help, so and then they have this sense of like, okay, I can do this, and I'll be safe if I do this. There's, yeah.
Excellent. So, you talk about being safe. Before we hopped on, we talked about the importance of balance, and that being safe, especially for our elderly clientele, that balance plays an important role. So in the office, we always talk about the importance of working on balance. Can you talk about the importance of how yoga actually improves balance?
Sure. Yeah. And we did talk a little bit about like proprioception, like where your body is in space and knowing both where it is in space and then what's going on inside. So gaining the strength to in both your abdominals and your back, referred to as the core, to be able to hold yourself up, that strength there, the strength in the legs, that's going to help with your walking. So walking is a balance thing, just moving forward. So if you can't balance, maybe your walking is a little off. So there's that safety issue. In yoga, that is one of our assessments. Can you balance what, but even holding on to support, as long as you're engaged and focused on the balance, that's okay. We were talking about the bolsters and this props and supports. It's okay to have that there because it may just be something you need at that time to give you that sense of safety so that you can focus on the strength to hold yourself up, to breathe. If you're not holding yourself up, remember the breath could be a little more shallow or it could be erratic. So always incorporating some type of balance, at least in my yoga classes right now that are virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of times with the treatment plans, there may be a balance pose involved there.
Excellent. Yeah. So when we were talking about, you just touched base on strength, right? So let's talk about how yoga can actually build strength. When we have a lot of the people who work out, maybe they do CrossFit or maybe they're weightlifters, but yoga can actually help them. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. And I feel like people don't necessarily think that yoga is a strong practice. And primarily we serve women. Not many men practice yoga because I think it's just, kind of more fluffy, I guess, than CrossFit and some of those other things. But it can definitely be a nice addition to some of those stronger, more aerobic practices like CrossFit. And you're holding your own body weight up, So what if you hug your muscles in towards your bones? You're strengthening your tensile, connections of your bones. Yeah, I think it's definitely integral to other activities that you can do, and they both support each other. Sometimes just doing one thing, you need to change it up with something else. So
I find that adding yoga to those who may have difficulty with a bench press or a military press, something that incorporates their shoulder use, because I don't think a lot of people get that, especially when you're loading, like in a downward dog, how that creates that shoulder strength, that core strength, that scapular mobility and shoulder mobility. So, when we have somebody like, they're stuck, maybe they can't get a certain lift. I find that when we go to yoga, if they can hang in there and get past, it's just more than just stretching. That their strength improves and that they can get past that sticking point. So, I think yoga for strength is absolutely phenomenal. Now, Mary Ann asked that in yoga, space is always referenced or making space. Can you please elaborate on this as a benefit?
Space. Yes. Could be space in the body, space between the thoughts, spacious breath. I'm not sure what exactly she's referring, but maybe she hears that in some of her yoga classes or online, So those could be some of the facets of making space. So making space in your body, if you're in a pose, but you notice that you're holding, let's say, your shoulders tight, can you exhale and maybe release those shoulders a little bit so that it feels like there's more space there? There's more space and, the joints, the junctures there. Space in the mind, you could use a breath technique or a meditation technique to to create a little space between the thoughts, especially when you ever heard of the monkey mind, where it's like thoughts, yeah. Or circulating like a movie film. But create some spaciousness between those thoughts, and then space in the breath. If you're breathing a little more rapidly, elongating or lengthening that breath a little bit may create a little more space. And for your digestive area too, as your diaphragm descends and ascends, there's a little more space and get some nice movement in there. And, hopefully that will help all those other things down there.
There's things moving for sure, right? So, we have people who sometimes suffer with constipation, and when we get them to breathe right and we get them involved in yoga, things flow better.
Yeah.
All around, right? Yeah. So it's very, very helpful for them. So can you talk a little bit about two things? Movement as medicine. I always talk about that in the office, movement as medicine, how you can use yoga if you're hurting, how you can use it to not hurt. If you're having neck pain, upper quarter pain because you've been sitting at the computer all the time, maybe you can share some brief moves with that. That's really important. If you can talk about that, that would be great. Movement as medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why I'm here as a yoga therapist. So, I don't know how much you go over with your patients on, what is pain and what is the purpose of pain, and as a protector, but in our modern life, pain or protection seems to happen all the time, as our nervous system is ramped up and we're dealing with all kinds of stressors and, online all the time. And what's the next thing we're going to see in the news? So our protective mechanisms are on overload. Okay. And physically sitting now here in front of our screens all day, we're in this protective mode. So you may be starting to hold your shoulders up and not even be realizing that, or taking your neck forward into that tech neck, I guess they refer to it as. Yep. So being aware of that, first of all, and someone kind of has to call that out, because we just start to habitually be like this. So if you can have someone say, okay, let's come into an awareness practice first and foremost, and then that's going to become your new habit, is like, oh yeah, my shoulders are up. Then you can start to release them. Okay. You can do movements of shoulder rolls, of doing that. You can start to increase strength through that thoracic spine and open up here, because now this is a little shorter and this is stretched out. It needs some strengthening, and this needs to open. So there could be movements of just the arms coming in and out, with breath, because if you're holding your breath while you're doing this, you're creating more tension.
Right.
Knowing that you have to connect the breath and the movement together, to release that tension. And you could do some minor neck circles, knowing if you have a cervical issue or a flare-up going on, you may go to your edge, right? That maybe where there's a little discomfort or just the big inklings of a little bit of pain. Can you remain calm? What is happening with your body? And even checking in with your thoughts. My mentor, Neil, and his team have these movement guidelines, which I always reiterate with my clients and in my classes. Come to the edge, keep monitoring what's happening with your breath, what's happening with your body tension, what's happening in your thoughts, all those aspects of yoga, mind, body, and spirit. So that's what I would suggest, is just awareness And then if you have to do some, changes, maybe of your behavior, of sitting a little more upright, working on strengthening, your back muscles, your core, all that. Did that?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
Okay.
And touch on another topic, and that is, that it's okay. You don't have to do the whole hour-long session of you, or the whole 30-minute, that you have to listen to what your body says. Because I have some patients like, I was doing great, and then it went from great to bad. They just did too much. So can you talk about, what telltale signs should you be cognizant of that you now need to say, okay, you know what? It's enough for today. I can come back another day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's sometimes hard, especially, we'll get type A's and they're like, no, I'm going to be here.
Right.
So like, what is contracting, the mind, right? It's all about the ego at that point, like,
always,
I got to do this. Practice. The first time I had to explain some of these movement guidelines to a client, they were like, but I don't know yet. I'm like, that's right. You don't know yet, where your edge is. So let's work to that point and check in, what is happening here? Continue to say, do I feel safe? Will I regret this later? I always think back to college, will I regret this later? But it took practice, by my mid-20s.
It's learning, right? It's always learning.
Right. It's always learning. So that's it. It's just, you came there, unfortunately, some of the yoga classes, and I've been hurt in some yoga classes, some basic yoga classes when I was first starting out, because I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and now I know, and I know what to do. And not just because I'm a teacher and a therapist, it's just because of my practice. So yes, it is your practice, mindful of what you can do. Is this where I want to go with this? And if you have a teacher who has the right languaging, they're going to be able to kind of ask and cue the students, be aware of this. We just did a downward facing dog, come into child's pose, and then be aware of your muscles, be aware of your breathing, be aware of even like what you're thinking.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so I got another question. What is your favorite yoga move?
Oh my
your
God.
favorite posture?
Yeah.
You can only do one.
Okay. It has to be a half moon pose.
Okay.
It's one where you're standing on one leg and you place the same hand as your leg on the floor or a block or a bolster or even a chair. And then the other leg lifts behind you. So it's almost like the letter L, but inverted L.
Gotcha.
And then their arm goes up. Yeah, for some reason I can rock that one. And
nice.
Even through all the different things that I've been going through, it's like, yeah, I can do a half moon. So
nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we surely covered quite a bit tonight. Maybe after we're done, you'll give me some links. So definitely want to link back. So how can people get in touch with you now? So why don't you share with them now?
Absolutely. So I have a website and my email is almost the same thing. So it's www.dianekistleryogatherapy.com, or that could be dianekistleryogatherapy@gmail.com.
Gotcha. And are you physically seeing people still, or is it just all online kind of deal?
It's all virtual at this point. I did come up with the CDC plan, just in case in the summer when things kind of opened up, I was like, okay, I got some requests to be on 101, and then the winter happened. So we're going to see, as everyone gets vaccinated and continue to wear their masks and practice social distancing, we'll see how the summer unfolds. But I definitely miss my clients and my students live. This is the best we can do, and I'm grateful for it.
It will get better. I think we're getting there. We'll rock it soon. And before I let you go,
okay,
I have to ask this last one. And I want to say, I hope I say it correctly.
Yes.
Djembe drum. Djembe drum. You play the djembe drum. Djembe? Is that correct?
No, I'm going to say it incorrectly.
Djembe.
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 djembe drum. No,
Can't let that one go. So you're going to have to just talk about that and we'll end it with that.
Yeah. Years ago, I went to a yoga retreat up at Kripalu, which is in Massachusetts. And I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the same time, 12 years ago. And I decided to do a course on drumming because I'm always in my car with music on, like drumming on the steering wheel.
Gotcha.
So it was a djembe drum class, and came back drumming all the way back from Massachusetts. And that was my Christmas present a year later. Nice. And so I bang on that. I have a new steel tongue drum now, so I'm trying that with my classes. So
very cool.
Thank you.
Very cool. Very neat.
I'll play for you. I'm not going to be putting out a CD or anything.
I think you should just start your own YouTube channel right now.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody who hang with us these last 45 minutes. It was really cool. Learned a lot. And you know what? If you have any questions, post them below and we'll do a replay of this as well. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.